Hello and welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Contents Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining me. It's May 5th, 2023. Let's get straight into discussions. Well, as mentioned last week Friday, we were due to be joined by the president of the Sills Farmers Support Group, Mr. Bindra Miraj. Due to technical difficulties, we weren't able to have that conversation. But he's agreed to actually join us again this morning, for which we're thankful for. So just to update you on the information shared last week, a 2010 report by the Predial Larceny Unit in CARICOM by Dr. Barbara Graham found that 82% of farmers and fishermen were affected by the crime, costing them at least 17.9% of their output, or an estimated value of US $321 million annually. Well, Mr. Bindra Miraj is with us via the Zoom platform this morning. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. My apologies for Friday. We had some little issues with the laptop and so, but I think we're okay this morning. So good morning.
It is a good morning indeed, and no need to apologize. It was on our end as well, but thank you very much for joining us again this morning. So straight into the meat of the matter. First off, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, that is the Honorable Kazim Hussain, last October, he actually he publicly asked thieves who are committing these crimes, who are committing predial larceny, to please stop. Has his words beared any fruit since then?
In terms of action, no. What we are noticing is that the minister has tried to implement the new predial larceny code. Now that is taking too long as far as we are concerned. And if you do not have that squad operational 24/7 and immediately, farmers are going to continue to have problems. So at this point, I will have to say no effective remedies just yet from the minister and the ministry.
But is there a cost associated with predial larceny? Is there an average? In fact, is there a specific target that thieves and livestock thieves have been aiming for?
Basically, at random figures, right? We are saying that the prevalence of crop pilferage, equipment pilferage, and animal husbandry pilferage is in the vicinity of maybe 40 to 50% of the farmers' productions now. Because you see, it's just not one item. Farmers are losing equipment also. And that is where the issues are coming up now, because that equipment you're talking about they're losing is big money. So that is what is creating the issue of the cost factor.
Mm-hmm. Well, this affects multiple avenues. It affects the livelihoods of farmers, of course, but it also affects the availability of food and food outputs for the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. To what extent now is this becoming more and more alarming, even given the fact that the rainy season is here and floods already affect farming as is, with predial larceny now, what is it that, if any, warnings that you'd like to extend to Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, last November, we issued warnings about the price increase, and it did so said, so done. But we also said what was going to happen this year with the dry season. Now, we are having a lot of goods on the market right now, produced and so, that are much, much, much more affordable at this time. With the influence of predial larceny, with the increased cost of chemicals, with all of these issues that are surrounding the farmers, right? What is going to happen? We are going to see some increases in particular items that we were not able as farmers to produce in bulk. For instance, tomatoes. Because of the type of dry season we got, tomatoes production had fallen. And then in last month, when we got that just sudden shower just before April, what happened, a lot of the tomato farmers, they lost a lot of their crops. Now, as you would realize, we are having some flooding in certain areas. Right now, in the Lupino area and Orange Grove area, we are having some issues. The floodgate at Lupino, at Orange Grove, is not working properly. So some of the farmers are also complaining about that. Now, when people complain about the price of produce, and they're talking about and comparing the price of our produce here compared to bringing in, like, apples and mangoes and that kind of thing, these are the extenuating circumstances we have to take into consideration. Those conditions that surrounding the price and what the farmers have to face in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the other things that you'll have to face is pretty lasting, which is the sense of our discussion this morning. In fact, the Sales Farmer Support Group has come up with a 7-point plan with suggestions, solutions to deal with predatory larceny. How did this plan even come about? I understand that there's great frustration, and as you mentioned earlier, at this point, it seems as though the minister's words has not necessarily bared much fruit. But is it solely based off of those two particular instances that has led to the creation or the formulation of this 7-point plan?
Basically, we have been talking to the country about predatory larceny for the longest while. We have been talking this over a year now, and we knew this was going to happen at this time. It is getting worse. Crop pilferage is worse stuff now. Equipment. What is also going on now? Our farmers, our members are complaining about holdups. So you go to sell your products at Macoya Market at 3 a.m. in the morning. You finish at 8 o'clock. So let's say you leave Macoya at 5:30, 6 o'clock. The bandits are casing the farmers, following them, take them on the road, and if they don't get them on the road, they take them at home. And this is where the home invasions are coming into play, right? Worst off, you would find that when and if a farmer makes a report to a police station, they will tell that farmer, listen, we don't handle that. You have to go to the predatory larceny squad. This squad is not really, in its full gear of capacity to work at this point in time. So a lot of these holdups and invasions are not being reported because of the fact that there is no one for the farmers to turn to. And if they do go, they're not getting any assistance. Now, one of the major problems that our farmers are facing is repeat offenders coming back to their property. One farmer has been complaining 5 times he lost his crops, another one 10 times, and it is by the same people from the community who are doing this. And these are the issues why we have moved to try and assist.
Okay, so a couple of things to dissect from your response. One, it seems as though injustices on the part of the TTPS, if we were to go with your words this morning of experiences of farmers, that's absolutely ridiculous, because as far as I am aware, you are entitled to make a report about any home invasion or even these crops being lost to a police station, who should then forward it to the predatory larceny squad. Is it that they're not taking the report at all, even in regards to the home invasion?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of the TTPS. They have to do that themselves. But we have had complaints from our farmers that this is the issue, and they are fed up going to the TTPS, and they're not doing anything. Now, because of that issue, and basically where you do not have a PL squad in the area, or a PL squad that is operational 100%, what we have asked in one of the points that we are making as solutions is that could there be a link from the TTPS and the PL squad? The Act does say that can happen, because the Act is very clear. The Act says any constable can do a road check, a roadblock, a charge, any constable of TTPS, whether it's the PL squad. I'm going to take it further. a constable who's an estate police can do that also. And that this is one of the issues that we have. So why can't we link the both squads, the TTPS and the PL squad, especially in the areas where there are no pre-larceny offices? I mean, we wouldn't be able to have offices all over the country. So what about if we take some officers from the PL squad, we train them in what we are doing, and let them reside at the TTPS stations to handle these issues. Mm-hmm. And they could also help in patrolling also. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just one suggestion.
I know that, throughout the course of the last year, we've heard of the damning reports of the pre-larceny squad. And when I say damning reports, I meant in regards to its functioning at least. There were questions about whether or not it can continue, whether or not it has sufficient resources. At this point, this morning, what is the latest with respect to the functioning of the PL squad?
It is functioning, but very, very, very small, very bits and pieces. What we know for a fact is close to 5,000 people applied for positions in the PL squad, and that has been reviewed now. What they can do, they can probably only hire about 600 to 700, because that is where the resources can fill, and possibly 5 vehicles to man the entire country. That's about what can be done at this point in time. But I am personally feeling that this matter is not taking priority, and we need to impress upon the ministry and the minister that this must be done as soon as possible.
In your opinion, how many officers are needed to fully staff and equip an effective PL squad?
In Trinidad, we need to have at least 10 to 15 offices and at least 20 to 25 vehicles, and approximately 600 to 700 officers in Trinidad alone. Tobago, we are thinking about 3 to 4 offices, right, in the different points, with 40 to 30 to 40 officers with 5 vehicles. That is what we are looking at this time.
So as I go deeper into the plans that you have proposed, the 7 points plan, so one of the things is farmers' badges,
yes,
as well as badges for middlemen who may be actually operating wholesale and retail outlets. Who would be charged with actually registering farmers and these retail men? Because there are many bodies. There's the Sales Farmers Group, there's NAMDEVCO, for example. Who do you think should be responsible for actually registering farmers as well as the middlemen and ensuring that all documentation is up to par and everything is in its right place?
Okay, at this point in time, the correct body to assume that role should be the ASTT. That's and the ministry, of course. Now, the ASTT is the only body that is recognized by the ministry and is enacted by an act of parliament. So basically, that's the body that should be doing this. But because of what is going on in the ASTT, our group, the Sales Farmer Support Group, right? We have just gotten an office. Well, I mean, for the last 6 months, we have renting an office and assisting farmers to do that, to get their farmers' badges and to also get the traders' badges. Now, the traders' badge and farmers' badge are 2 different things, right? Now, in the farmers' badges, you have the permanent farmers who have land tenure, and they can get a badge, right, for 3 years. But we have been negotiating and trying to assist farmers who are, let's put it this way, farmers who either rent land, they don't have land tenure, or anybody who don't have a land tenure, lease land, rent land. Some farmers are even squatting, have been squatting for many, many, many years, right? We have been successful in getting some of these farmers a 1-year badge in the Caroni area. That's basically with the Caroni lands kind of situation. Most of the farmers who have the 2 acre plus in Caroni don't have a registered deed or lease for that. And this is why they have, because of the recommendations that our group we have been making to the ministry, some of these farmers are now getting a 1-year badge. Now, so that's the farmers' badges in 2 categories: permanent, temporary. We are also saying that the traders' badges are important. Now, a farmer can sell his product before reaching the market to a trader. That trader must have some sort of identification saying, I am a trader, I am allowed to have this. So the traders' badges, we are impressing the ministry to make sure that the investigations are done and done quickly and get these badges to these farmers and traders. I'll tell you why. If a trader has his produce or products on his vehicle, he is not a farmer. He would not have a farmer's badge. If he does not have a trader's badge, the police, a constable, according to the Act, in any one of the security services can stop him and charge him or take him to the station. So those are the issues that we are talking about with the farmers' badges at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. Very fine lines, because soon you might hear people suggesting this is unnecessary. In fact, this is abuse of power. Very, very fine lines there. But I want to tie this back into something you said earlier, and that is in regards to one farmer complaining that 5 times his crops were stolen, and it's suggested it's by the same individual or individuals.
Correct.
Now,
yes.
Is there any way to try and reduce the possibility or the instances of traders, of wholesalers or retailers from purchasing stolen items and then selling it on the market? Is this what this entire badge system or record keeping system will try to prevent?
That you are very correct. Yes, that is one way that we have suggested that we are trying to minimize this problem of what you call pilferage. It's bigger than that, There are people in this country, and we need to look at it very carefully. The purchase of stolen items, right? When you are caught and you cannot produce evidence, whether it's a receipt or a trader's badge or something saying that I purchased this from Mr. X farmer, right? We need to look at that very, 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 intense. I'll tell you why. It is at this point in time where we need to have the Act, the PL Act must be amended. And this is where it starts. This is where we should start the conversation. The PL Act must be amended. There are times now, for instance, last week, 2 gentlemen were caught stealing some animals in the central area. They were given bail last week, Monday. Now tell me, how fair is that farmer losing his animals and these people getting bail to go back out and do what they have to do again? Shouldn't it be that we categorize the offenses, and we may have to seriously consider putting some of the offenses as non-bailable, the serious offenses, non-bailable. Probably put a dollar value or a quantum of something that has to be done. And in the same light, if we are changing the Act by increasing the fines, increasing the jail terms, at this point in time, the Act says $5,000 and 4 years, but now you're getting bail, right? I am saying, our group, we are saying that because of the hardships and we are facing, and it's getting worse for farmers, right? There are 3 areas that we need to look at in the Act. 1, the purchase of stolen items. The Act must be amended for non-bailable offenses, and also the laws of trespass. That means when someone is caught in someone else's farm or garden, right, we must make that matter a heavy criminal matter, no bail, and it must have heavy fines and heavy jail terms. So that is part of the 3 items that we are talking about on the suggestions or the solutions list.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wondering, sir, if that even will help a situation if the Trans-Tobago Police Service are facing difficulties in even responding or taking reports. Because the next question would be, is it that you're also suggesting that the PL Act is not sufficient enough to deal with the current situation?
Definitely. You are totally 199% correct. And that's where we are having this conversation, and we are trying to get this information to the minister, to the ministry, to the population. So people would not, accuse farmers of, randomly increasing prices, because there are extenuating circumstances surrounding farmers, and we have to be educated on what these issues are, right? Now, when you look at another issue of the Act, when you have let's say someone is caught and the produce is taken in for evidence. Yes, you can photograph this evidence, and so you can photograph the animals in evidence. But you know what? Sometimes, because it's produced, you cannot delay the process. It should be done immediately, and sometimes there are no photographers around, police photographers, to do this. And what happens to the produce? The produce starts to change. It's perishable. And the farmer they lose that, and they lose the money that goes behind it to produce it. But also, a technicality in the law does not account for this situation. Let's say you have tomatoes, and it is photographed one way, and the evidence shows that the tomato is in a different looking position, a different type of condition. There's a loophole that says that is not the evidence that's not what I brought here. And the loophole can say similar, this is not what it is, because no farmer can mark every tomato for identification purposes. None. Or avocados or oranges. They cannot. There is no way that one can say, this is my tomato, I have a mark on it. So one of the issues that we have to look at in the Act is the identification process of the produce, and the animals too. Even though people are tagging the animals, right, they may not have a direct link or mark to the animal, saying that this is my animal. So that is one of the areas we have to look at also.
Well, that ties in also to the responsibility of farmers and the measures that they themselves are actually implementing, whether or not they're securing their property to the best of their ability or even securing their land, because that will be one of the suggestions from the public. But we're more or less out of time. I must push this question into this morning's conversation, and that is with respect to another suggestion, and that is making available FULs to farmers so that they may be in possession of licensed and registered firearms. Is this something that you have been advocating for with the Commissioner of Police?
Well, yes, but I want to take a second and go into a little bit detail of that. One, we're talking about a special court to link farmers offenders who have been, gotten, their goods stolen, and so we're talking about linking the TTPS and the PL squad. But we are also saying that one of the deterrents is to probably deploy the army in the areas of the coastal areas where farmers are situated also. This will not only help farmers patrols, but it will also help with border control. But we are talking about firearms. We were able to speak to the commissioner at the Security Forum, which was hosted by the Confederation of Chambers 3 months ago. She indicated to us, please stay back, I want to speak to you. We did this. We are awaiting a call from the the COP. At this time, we are still awaiting to find out when she will meet with us so we can discuss this item of firearms issuance to farmers. We are awaiting this right now. We are saying it is time. It is time for farmers to be protected. Bona fide farmers must be recognized, and let's be realistic. Farmers have to work with cash. So they're a certain target. So we need to be very careful, and we need to have this conversation. This conversation must be started. We have started the conversation, but we need to get the support of the Ministry of Agriculture to assist us to push this one forward.
Is that support there, by the way, from the Ministry of Agriculture?
I cannot answer that question because it was never discussed.
Not specifically to FULs, but generally, would you say that the support is there?
Basically, yes. They do support our group. I can testify to that fact. They do. If we call on the minister, we call on the junior ministers, we do get support. I will not deter from that. But you see, it's a situation where I personally find the process, maybe I come from a different background of business, and I find the processes move in a very slow way in that ministry. That's just me. So if we have a conversation 3 months ago, you don't see something coming up until you actually get in there and say, look, well, what is happening with this? What is going on with this? This is what is going on here. Look, farmers are complaining. Monies have been put aside for grants for farmers. And the committee that is supposed to oversee this, they are taking too long. Farmers are complaining. So how come we are not getting the assistance from the grant section? Or, we need to have a banking sector, and that should be the ADB, which should be farmer friendly. That is, we can't, we need to get the ministry involved in these things to push food security in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Mr. Bintramaraja, we went way overboard, but thank you very much for your time this morning, sir, and for highlighting the plight of the farmers as well as the solutions put forward for consideration. Let's see what transpires next. But at this point, thank you very much, sir, and do have a good day.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was President of the Sills Farmers Support Group, Mr. Bintramaraja, this morning. Solutions, a 7-point plan with regards to dealing with the predial larceny here in Trinidad and Tobago. Conversations with the relevant minister as well as the Commissioner of Police are necessary at this time. The response to this plan of action, let's see where it goes. For now, we have to take a break on AM Prime. On the return, we welcome our second guest for this morning's proceedings. Stay tuned to the program.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sport?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to AM Prime, and thank you for staying with us this morning. We move across to the sister Isle of Tobago, where over the last couple of weeks, what has dominated headlines is a voice note circulating on social media, which suggests, it's alleged that the two voices heard speaking in the background are that of two senior officials within the Tobago House of Assembly. Well, not much has been said since then from the THA. In fact, we've only heard from those on the outside. I'm joined now by an individual who believes that the people of Tobago have been hoodwinked by the Progressive Democratic Patriots. That is the leader of the People's National Movement's Tobago Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis. He's with us via Zoom. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to the listeners and viewers of this network. It's a pleasure to be here once again to discuss matters pertaining to the business of Tobago.
Well, let's get into your first statements with regard to the PDP hoodwinking Tobagonians. Could you expand on that a little bit, please, as to what you mean?
Well, a number of things could apply to that. Of course, the PDP, during the election campaign, made a number of promises to the people of Tobago that simply have not been delivered. And it's not just a matter of not delivering promises, but they're actually inflicting pain and hardship upon the people of Tobago. And most recently, we have this situation now with this voice recording circulating across the region, possibly the world by now, because I've received calls from as far as Barbados, people from Grenada messaging me, telling me and asking questions about this voice recording. So it has gone far and wide. And during the campaign, the then PDP, led by Farley Augustine, as the person responsible for the campaign at that time, engaged in a process where they all signed a social contract with a number of principles that they promised the people of Tobago that they were going to adhere to, two of which were, one, zero tolerance for corruption, and secondly, another principle was about using state resources responsibly. And of course, based on what we heard in that voice recording, which I believe to be the voices of the Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Education, we heard them planning to be corrupt. We heard them planning to utilize state resources for their own personal and political benefit, which is a flagrant breach of not only that social contract, but also the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. And I can specifically speak to two particular pieces of legislation which may come into play here: the Prevention of Corruption Act and the Integrity in Public Life Act. And notwithstanding that, notwithstanding all the promises of transparency and accountability, today's date 13. It's 13 days since Tobagonians and persons across the entire country first heard that voice recording. And we have not even gotten the benefit of a response, not even a denial, nothing at all from this administration. Actually, they have been in hiding. They have been avoiding the media. The Chief Secretary recently, when he was cornered by a TV6 media personality, Ms. Liz Williams. He indicated that he will respond soon. And knowing the Chief Secretary, soon actually means never, because he has promised a number of things soon. Recently, he promised a reshuffle of the Executive Council. It's almost a year, and we are yet to have that. He promised the people of Tobago will get their ex gratia payment soon. 2 Christmases have passed. We are yet to hear anything about that ex gratia payment. So that is specifically at this time what I mean by the people of Tobago being hoodwinked by Farley and his team.
Specifically, this issue, because you've raised many issues there, but specifically the most recent, I suppose, which is this voice note circulating on social media. How serious is this matter beyond just troubling? Because we cannot say for sure that laws have been broken.
Well, of course, that is based on my own opinion. At a cursory glance, when I looked at both the Integrity in Public Life Act and the Prevention of Corruption Act, I think it's going to be very interesting. And it is my opinion that there has been breaches of the law of those 2 particular pieces of legislation. And I am no lawyer, I am no judge, of course, but that is based on my own personal opinion. And of course, I expect that the Integrity Commission will have a look at this and determine how they are going to proceed. But it's a very serious matter. It's not only unethical, but as I said before, to me, my opinion is that it is illegal to utilize state resources. It is obviously illegal, actually, to utilize state resources for your own personal and political benefit. That is corruption.
Now, we are always encouraging younger people to get more involved in politics. We're always encouraging younger people who aspire to lead Trinidad and Tobago to become more and more involved. You can't make change from the outside. You can only make change when you're on the inside and you're actually more in tune with what's taking place. However, is that, being a young individual yourself, a youth of Trinidad and Tobago, though you've been in politics for a number of years, is it that is backfiring, that the maturity amongst these younger politicians do not exist?
Say that again. Is it that
the maturity amongst these younger politicians to deal with such instances and issues do not exist? Or is that unfair to suggest?
Well, I think it's an unfair suggestion. Farley Augustine is not the only young individual in politics. I myself became the island's youngest chief secretary at the age of 33 back in 2020. And before that, I entered politics in the year 2012 at the age of 25. And I've been in public life since then, and I've not engaged in any corrupt activities. Right? And there are other young politicians as well on the island of Tobago and even in Trinidad who have been in the political sphere, and the names have not been called, they have not been accused in such ways. And I wouldn't say that at all, that it's a problem with young people in politics, because there are even older persons who have found themselves in trouble, being brought before the courts, some on charges at this point in time as it relates to corruption and dishonesty in public affairs. And they are older persons, 50s, some in their 60s perhaps, right? So I don't think it's a situation at all with young people specifically, but this specific individual has an issue. And I tend to see as well that power doesn't change people. I'm hearing a lot of persons saying, well, the young man has changed since he got into this position. He's no longer taking calls. He's no longer accessible. He became very arrogant. He became very, very proud. But I tend to believe that this is who the young man was all along. And now that he's in this position, those behaviors, those character flaws are simply now being amplified. So it's not a matter of him changing at all, but power reveals who you really are.
So you're suggesting that power doesn't change an individual, power reveals who the individual truly is?
Correct.
Okay. Moving beyond that, is it fair in your comments that the Progressive Democratic Patriots has hoodwinked the people of Tobago? Is it even fair to use, or label them as the Progressive Democratic Patriots now that they've shed their skin of that particular color and formulated a party of their own?
Well, interestingly, I didn't actually see the PDP. I can't remember saying exactly the PDP hoodwinking the people of Tobago. I guess we have to be specific and say that Farley and these individuals have hoodwinked Tobago in a number of ways. And maybe the PDP as well as an organization, because at the end of the day, they came to the people of Tobago under that name, under that banner, with a particular mandate, making particular promises. And guess what? This administration is no longer PDP. They were first, secondly, they were independent after being PDP. And within recent times, they are talking about a new political party called TPP. So I think, yes, we can be specific and say that Farley and his band of misfits have hoodwinked and continue to hoodwink the people of Tobago. But the Progressive Democratic Patriots has to take some blame and some responsibility, because I think part of the issue has to do with a lack of structure as an organization, a lack of discipline as an organization, and certainly a lack of honesty, especially towards the people of Tobago.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Dennis, we were having a conversation on Friday amongst my colleagues here on another program as to whether or not people are really talking about this issue, or whether or not it's just the media that is continuing to push to try and get a response of these allegations. One colleague suggested, she doesn't think that people are really speaking about it much. You're saying that it goes beyond just Trinidad and Tobago now. It's reached Barbados, it's reached Grenada. And another guest on the program said, people in Tobago are speaking about it. In fact, it's divided and split Tobagoanians, because there are some that still support Farley Augustine. There will always be support for Farley Augustine, just as how there will always be support for the PNM Tobago Council. So is it that, silence is golden? The Chief Secretary has chosen not to come out and make a response, even though it's almost 2 weeks. But is it that we're making this a bigger issue than it actually is?
Well, again, it is a big issue, because we are talking about corruption. We are talking about an entire administration choosing by their silence to endorse this corruption. So it is a very serious matter that they cannot get away from. And to them, they may feel, to their personal benefit, that silence is golden. But what about Tobago's interests? And these are individuals, again, and this is why I said they hoodwinked Tobagoanians. These are individuals who promised Tobago first, and to put the interests of Tobagoanians above their own personal interests. And therefore, if that is the case, and if they promise to put Tobago's interests first, then they should have, the individuals in the voice recording should have responded within 24 hours to this issue, whether coming out to say it's not through, or whether coming out, whatever the response is, we should have had a response by now. And failing that, the individuals who surround them, the rest of that team, who, by the way, must continue to have confidence in the Chief Secretary for him to stay on as Chief Secretary, those individuals, following this long period of silence, should have been man enough and responsible enough to say something. I'm not sure if they are talking to him privately behind closed doors, but we should have had a response from those individuals by now, right? Stating their feelings about the matter, stating their opinions on the matter, and speaking up on behalf of the people of Tobago who elected them, especially in circumstances where a few months ago, they claimed that they were all independents. Having left the PDP, resigned from the PDP, of course, some people in Tobago, including me, called for fresh elections because of that situation. We felt that it continues to be undemocratic and unconstitutional for them to continue to remain in office under that banner. But notwithstanding that, they claim to be independent. And here we are now in a situation where independence should thrive, in a situation where independent voices should be willing to speak. They have chosen to remain silent. And yes, it is a major issue for the people of Tobago. The people of Tobago some are talking publicly, some are quiet, but all of Tobago, including their supporters, are shocked, are flabbergasted, are disappointed by this latest development. And yes, of course, there are some, in the name of political loyalty and in the name of sycophancy, will turn a blind eye to this. Some will even call it trivial, and some may even call it right. Because, of course, to say it is not wrong is actually to say it is right. And this cannot be right. This cannot be right at all. The people of Tobago deserves better. We deserve leaders who will not plot to be corrupt with our scarce resources. And we deserve leaders who will man up whenever faced with these kinds of circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Dennis, I would challenge you to tell me this morning, again, let me be very careful there. People may suggest you're trying to defend allegations of corruption, and by no means necessary. But at the same time, I always try to think of an individual who hasn't had allegations of corruption labeled towards them or against them. But to a certain extent, if we're being honest with each other, Mr. Dennis, this, as much as it's not benefiting the people of Tobago, it does benefit the PNM Tobago Council. It helps with any election campaign that the PNM Tobago Council will have. So, this morning as we're having this conversation, this is benefiting you to a great extent. Now, going just beyond that, the politics in Tobago, the political landscape in Tobago has evolved over the last couple of years. I mean, for the first time in 18 years, we have a new administration within the Tobago House of Assembly led by a completely different set of individuals or different political party. Is the politics of Tobago, does it need to be held at a higher standard that we could withstand scrutiny, I suppose? And if that is the case, is it that we're no step closer to that actually happening?
Well, I would want to suggest that the politics in Tobago is actually at a very high standard. And yes, you may have heard a lot of claims and a lot of talk about corruption on the part of the PNM. You've heard billions missing from the Treasury. You've heard ridiculous claims about a zip line missing. You've heard allegations made against Tobagonians, even the previous political leader and myself, who are accused of all manner of evil. But where was the evidence, right? And I've always asked myself since then, since even this current chief secretary promising an audit report since September last year, promising to root out corruption from the THA. They have been there almost 2 years. They have conducted at least one audit, or an audit of at least one program, which they claimed was riddled with corruption. And to date, we have seen no evidence. To date, no politician, no public servant, nobody has been reported to the police or the Integrity Commission or any body in this country responsible for investigating and pursuing corrupt individuals. So as far as I'm concerned, that is simply old talk. I think the politics and the governance on the island has been at a very high and acceptable standard over a number of years. And it is only within recent times, since December the 6th, 2021, that that standard has plummeted to lowest of lows. It has plummeted down a precipice, right, as it relates to governance, as it relates to transparency, as it relates to honesty, as it relates to delivery, as it relates to service to the people of Tobago. It has plummeted to the lowest of lows.
Mr. Dennis,
right?
are you saying that the PNM is the only party that, has the integrity, has the transparency and the honesty to lead? Is that what you're saying?
We have demonstrated that in Tobago. And before December the 6th, 2021, I did not have that opinion. I expected, even after the PDP won, based on all the things Farley said, of course, on the campaign trail, he told a number of lies. He misled Tobagonians in many ways, but he genuinely promised certain things, a certain kind of leadership, and therefore I expected them to at least maintain the standards that existed before, right? But having observed and having continued to live in Tobago for the past, it's about 18 months now under this administration, seeing what has transpired even before this disastrous voice recording, I am of the opinion now that based on the track record, we have to admit that the PNM is possibly the only group of individuals, the only organization that has the discipline, that has the stability, that has the experience, and that has the capacity to really lead the island of Tobago.
A couple more questions to get in actually before we bid you farewell, and again, thank you for joining us this morning. This particular strategy that was being discussed in this voice recording that was circulating on social media, with regards to using employees of the state, publicly, they're employed by the state, they're paid for by the state and taxpayers' dollars, but they're doing something different for the benefit of a political party or individuals. How could we say for certain that this is not a strategy that is employed by all political parties, and this was just one that came to light? This is something that's been happening for many years. It's even happening now amongst other political parties, but this is just the one that came to light.
Well, I could say to you without fear of contradiction that is not a strategy of the PNM to hire persons and utilize them to carry out political propaganda and to lie and mislead the people of Tobago. And I would say as well, no public servant, even the personal staff of the office holders, their advisors, their personal assistants, their drivers even, no public servant has on their job description spread propaganda or engage in political work on behalf of the administration. Of course, advisors to some extent will get involved in politics in terms of the impact of policies, etc. But no public servant generally has as their job description anywhere in this country to carry out propaganda and PR and all that kind of stuff on behalf of any political organization. There must be a line drawn between the operations of the political party and the operations of the government, right? It is corrupt, it is wrong, and it is certainly not a strategy of the People's National Movement. And I think it is unfair to accuse any political party of doing such without evidence. We have evidence in this case of this particular group of individuals plotting to utilize state resources. And one of the individuals indicated that we already have persons employed already to carry out this particular task, being paid for with my tax-paying dollars, with your tax-paying dollars. And again, that is simply corrupt and criminal.
Not public servants being hired. I understand that. Thank you for your response. But what about individuals who for example, run private vlogs and are given certain positions or certain contracts, and then on the part have to spread propaganda? Is that also something that we could say falls under this category?
Well, again, now generally, I think over a period of time in this country, we have become very loose with laws, right? Because according to the rules and regulations of persons operating within the public service, those persons should not even be openly engaged in politics. Those persons should not even be openly engaged criticizing any government or anything of the sort. But of course, over the years, we have allowed that kind of behavior. In Tobago, I've seen teachers, people who are responsible for teaching children in school, engage in criticizing the PNM when we were in office, engage in cussing out secretaries of the THE and even the chief secretary. And unfortunately, we have allowed that kind of behavior where public servants, teachers, in some cases, members of the protective services, making comments and getting directly involved in politics and this kind of behavior. And it is improper, but for some reason we have continued to allow it, and in some cases encouraged it. But when you peruse the law, such actions are not legal and proper at all as it relates to public servants. We have had even public servants in Tobago. There's a particular public servant, somebody appointed by the Public Service Commission on the Public Service Establishment, who campaigned against the PNM, ran for elections against the PNM, openly criticized the PNM. And when I say the PNM, I'm talking about the THE administration that they were employed for. We even have individuals within the THE right now employed in the THE and are part of media houses conducting interviews, interviewing THE officials, interviewing even me as political leader. So we have allowed that kind of conduct and that kind of behavior to creep into our governance structure. But it is certainly not proper because the law discourages that kind of behavior. But to answer your question directly, again, no, it is not a strategy of the PNM to hire persons and utilize them for political and party affairs, especially as it relates to propaganda, which involves misleading the people of Tobago, because it spoke to people creating fake profiles and all that kind of stuff. And when you talk fake profiles, it's about, I guess, in some cases, even defaming people who are your opponents. So it is not proper. And again, the action, let's face it, let's call it what it is criminal and corrupt.
My final question to you, Mr. Dennis, is simple. The October 2021 speech which you referred to, in which Farley Augustine at the Magdalena Grand Resort in Tobago produced a social contract. He encouraged all candidates, then candidates for the election on December 6th, to sign this social contract, to enact some level of integrity and transparency. He was even saying that it's to hold everyone accountable. Beyond that, he as Chief Secretary, if elected, has the power to discipline individuals. Who now has the power to actually hold the Chief Secretary accountable, even hold the power to discipline Farley Augustine?
Well, that's an interesting question, because by virtue simply of that social contract alone, even without the laws that I spoke about before, on the basis of that social contract alone, Pali Augustine and Zorisha Hackett should be out of office, because he did indicate that any of his secretaries who breach that social contract, they will find themselves outside of the Executive Council. And therefore, he should be outside of the Executive Council, along with Zorisha Hackett. And not only them, but Trevor James should have already been outside of the Executive Council. As it relates to holding the Chief Secretary accountable, the Chief Secretary, just like the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Prime Minister of many jurisdictions that practice the Westminster style of governance, just like Boris Johnson, who had to resign for less, and Theresa Truss, both of them from the United Kingdom, who had to resign for less. All of them serve on the basis of the members of their team, the members of the House, those elected members, in the case of the THAs, the assemblymen, having confidence in them. All right? So that, in effect, is really a way to keep the Chief Secretary honest. The people of Tobago will only have an opportunity to vote every 4 years, and the people of Tobago do not even elect the Chief Secretary. The people of Tobago elect assemblymen, and it is those assemblymen that represent the voices and the interests of Tobagonians. And it is those said assemblymen who have the responsibility to elect a Chief Secretary when you peruse the THE Act. And having elected a Chief Secretary, they also have the ability to demonstrate that they have no confidence in the Chief Secretary, if so be the case. And the THE Act prescribes that whenever assemblymen, the majority of them, say by way of a motion that they no longer have confidence in the Chief Secretary, that the Chief Secretary must resign or be removed by the President, right? And therefore, there is an arrangement in place that can hold this Chief Secretary accountable for his actions.
Mr. Dennis, I know I've stretched the interview far beyond the agreed upon time, but thank you very much, sir, for joining me this morning. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and opinions with us and with the viewing public, and I wish you all the very best, sir. Thank you for making yourself available. Take care.
Same to you. Thank you very much for having me.
That was the political leader of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis, there, sharing with us his thoughts and opinions as per the current situation that is taking place in Tobago and coming from the Tobago House of Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break on AM Prime. When we return, I welcome my final guest for this morning's edition of the program as we continue the discussions. Stay tuned.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is one of the most common issues faced by women of reproductive age in Trinidad and Tobago?
So we see more patients with polycystic if they're obese, but there are the small-billed patients who also have polycystic ovaries.
What other treatment options are there available for these girls? What's up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Welcome back to AM Prime. We've had a packed show this morning, and it doesn't end here. In fact, with the time that we have left, I'm pleased to welcome the chairman of the Repatriation Committee, Mr. Nizam Mohammed. He's with us via Zoom. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to you and your listeners, your viewers. It is a pleasure to be on your program this morning, sir.
Well, Mr. Mohammed, it's been about 2.5 months since this repatriation committee was established. Since then, what has transpired? In fact, where are we at with bringing these approximately 100 refugees back to Trinidad and Tobago?
You are correct. We have been in existence for about 2.5 months, and we have been establishing all that is necessary in order for us to execute our mandate. We have established an office in Port of Spain. We have also established an office in San Fernando. We have been assiduously pursuing information that we require in order to compile sufficient data to arrive at conclusions as to how this operation will actually be designed for us to bring home our people who are stranded in the Middle East. The challenges, I must tell you, from the very outset, the challenges are numerous, too many to mention. But we have been pursuing relentlessly, and we have been gaining some success. Some people feel we are a bit too slow, but when you understand that we have to rely on government ministries and the arms of these ministries for a number of things in order to assist us in establishing a network for operation, you will appreciate that we can only go as fast as the slowest arm of the public service with the various ministries. But in spite of that, we have been making some headway. We have established contacts with certain foreign countries, and the next step would be for us to go into some greater detail to work out the mechanics of how the operations should actually take shape. We are waiting on government for that kind of clearance, and that's the stage that we have reached.
Mm-hmm. Now,
in the interim, we have been relating with the relatives of those people who are affected and who are in these refugee camps and other places in the Middle East. And we have been explaining to them, giving them an update as to what is actually taking place.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said, in breaking down your response, you said that an office was established in Port of Spain, an office established in San Fernando. This three-member committee that is charged with this great task, is there enough resources that have been made available to ensure that all your functions, all your responsibilities are executed?
We, at the moment, we are getting there, but we have some minimal assistance to date.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and we have been managing on our own, and we have had some volunteers who have been assisting us, and that is how we have been able to make some progress.
And your greatest challenge, because you said that there are many challenges, and I'd like you to elaborate further on the challenges, but you also mentioned the slowest arm of the public services, how fast this committee could move. Has that proven to be the greatest stumbling block? Well,
I wouldn't say it's a stumbling block. There are stumbling blocks. I would say that they would hold us back to some extent, and the speed with which we hope that we would proceed, that has been affected to some extent, yes.
Now, what about the cooperation from the families in gathering the information that is necessary? And now, data gathering in order to create record keepings or profiles of the refugees who are stuck in these camps abroad. Has there been great cooperation by the relatives enough to actually create this database?
The information that they have provided has been extremely helpful to us. They have been very, very diligent in that regard, and understandably so, because they are somewhat anxious to rescue their relatives who are held up in these refugee camps. So I would say that they have been of tremendous help to us, and they have been cooperating with us so far.
The next side of it, of course, is the actual control of these refugee camps. From what I understand, there's no single government that actually controls these refugee camps, but rather authorities that are autonomous to any one particular government. Has the committee established how they are going to try and work around this?
You have actually entered into an area, you hit the nail on the head. That is the greatest challenge. This organization, ISIS, has left its legacy of total confusion and a concentration of our people can be found in two major camps in northeast of Syria. One of those camps has over 85 women and children, and that area is not controlled by any sovereign government, so that a government-to-government initiative cannot be worked out.
All right, I think we've lost Mr. Mohammed. If you can, sorry to interrupt you, sir. If you can hear me, your device froze. You're muted. You're still muted, sir. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick commercial break. Action, Mr. Mohammed, I'm going to have to ask you. You know, I'm so sorry, sir. If you could just repeat your response, we lost you halfway through.
Oh, you didn't lose me halfway through. What I'm saying is that northeast Syria, where these two camps are located, these two camps are controlled by autonomous authorities, part of which is the Syrian Liberation Army. And during combat, they were fighting against the Syrian government, so that you have an authority that is not on good terms with the Syrian government, and the camp is on Syrian soil. So what will be required will be further efforts in order to find ways and means of gaining access to these camps. And that is where the challenge lies, because we are not in a position to deal with government-to-government negotiations. Just yet. But we are working on that.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me get into some questions. I'm sure you've been asked of this before, but there are great concerns, of course, here in TNT that have been expressed by members of the public. It seems as though the public is split on this particular decision to repatriate these nationals. You know, you made comments in the past suggesting that the public and the people of Trinidad and Tobago denounce radicalism and extremism and violence. And you know, there have been some that are suggesting if you are saying that we should do that, why is it necessary now to repatriate these refugees?
These are our citizens, and if they are verified as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago would have a responsibility in that regard. In any country, you will have indifference when it comes, or you may have different views when it comes to this question of repatriation. Even in the developed countries, you have that kind of situation that you are talking about. But if we manage the situation properly, for example, we have identified the children and the women, and if we bring them in initially, and we are in a position to convince our population that resettlement and accommodation is comfortable enough for such returnees, the mindset of the public may go in one single direction. That is to say, let the people be reintegrated and let life continue to go on. It could be that these women, not the children, but the women were innocently dragged into something that was rather stupid in the first instance. And they have been innocent bystanders who got involved in a situation that they perhaps never dreamt of.
Mm-hmm. What is the committee's, I suppose, way of verifying, because this is the term you just used, verifying that they are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? How do we go about now doing that?
What will be necessary? We should. I think it will be like a three-pronged approach, and the first one would be access to the refugees, and we have to go through a verification process. And we need the involvement of certain government agencies for that exercise. For example, one of the, you will have to have health personnel, and you've got to get immigration officials, because I would presume, without talking or meeting or having any communication with any one of these refugees to date, I would presume that scarcely a single one would have travel documents that are valid. So that we have to make them travel ready. And it is a very, very complicated exercise. One, access is still high up in the air, and we are working on that. But when we do get access, then we've got to engage personnel from our various authorities in Trinidad who are specialists in various fields to pursue this verification process that I'm talking about.
Mr. Mohammed, if these is part of the responsibility of the committee actually also rehabilitating these refugees back into Trinbago society?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Is part of the responsibility of this repatriation committee also to rehabilitate these refugees back into Trinbago's society?
Well, it is our main responsibility to assist the government in having these people returned to Trinidad and Tobago. Once they're here, by no stretch of the imagination, our three-man committee can do what you have just said. That is, again, a very complex task that will involve social services and other agencies in the public service to ensure that people are detoxified if there is need for that, monitored and guided if necessary. This is why we say that we are in for a long haul with this exercise, and it is a very complex one at that.
Has it been established who's actually going to pay or fund the travels of the refugees to return to Trinidad and Tobago, if in the first place they funded their own way to get to ISIS camps?
We've not gotten to that stage as yet, but it could be that some relatives might be willing to assist in funding if and when we get to that stage.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Mr. Mohammed, given all the challenges that you also mentioned this morning, could you give an estimated timeline, if you were able to do so, of when the first tranche of citizens could return to TNT?
If I will answer by asking a question. If my next step is to talk with with two foreign governments in the Middle East at the diplomatic level, and I have to go to Caracas or even somewhere in the Middle East to do so, I have to get clearance, and I have to be facilitated by the government to do so. And when you make such an application or such a request, these things take time. The public service bureaucracy, etc. And bearing that kind of situation in mind, you will understand how difficult it is to give a time frame.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Mr. Mohammed, I want to thank you very much for joining me this morning, for just giving us this update And of course, we'll be in a conversation in the future for further updates. But for now,
Always a pleasure to be talking with you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. That was the chairman of the Repatriation Committee, Mr. Nizam Mohammed, just briefing us with regards to where the Repatriation Committee is in their efforts to return citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who are stranded in refugee camps abroad. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for EM Prime this morning. Thank you very much for joining me on this program. It certainly is always an honor that you start your day with me, and it's my pleasure that I'm able to start my day with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wish you a great day ahead. I've been advising you, walk with your umbrellas wherever you go, of course, and may be a productive, may be mature, responsible, and, well, from the lessons that we've learned, integrity is absolutely important, because at the end of the day, all you will have in life is your integrity. So live it well, live it honest, live it clean. Until tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, for more AM Prime, I'm Keaton Shaw. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
WESN.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content